Welcome to the Essential Libertarians, giving you the tools for self governance. I'm your host, Kareem. Today I have my awesome co host, Vinny Eastwood from The Vinny Eastwood Show. You can find him at vinnyeastwood.com and the One Great Network. Vinny, how's it going?
Well, somewhat fabulous.
Somewhat fabulous. All right, let's
Borderlining.
make it even more fabulous today. We got a lot of juicy stories today. So I'm just going to go ahead and dive right into it. But before I do that, if you want to keep the ideals of Ron Paul going, if you want to keep the Murray Rothbard ideals going as well, if you want a free world free of all these elites that we're going to talk about today, then check out the LP Mises Caucus. No more wars, lockdowns, bailouts, or mandates. You're an individual. You can make the best decisions for yourself. So, I have a lot of really crazy stuff today. First, I actually want to talk about a nice communist country we call New York. Um, and this is just literally an hour ago. I wasn't planning on talking about this, but courtesy to the We Are Change Telegram. So they're declaring a state of emergency of, I guess, the Omicron spike. They keep making up these weird names for it's the Delta variant. It's the Omicron. Like they're just, I think they're elites in some room.
Yeah, they're good at making up names like illegal protest. That's the new one they've come up with now.
Illegal.
It's like lawful rape. Anyway, go ahead.
So, all right, what's going on? Well, Kathy Holchul, who, if you don't know, she's insane. Like, I saw her saying, she's like, my disciples should tell people to get a medical procedure. I'm like, can we get Cuomo back, the Italian guy who he seemed a little bit more put together. And that's coming from an ANCAP, from a Democrat. But anyway, the already circulating Delta, oh my God, and newly identified Omicron variants of Rona. The declaration goes into effect December 3rd, which will allow the state to acquire pandemic fighting supplies. Which, what, they have ventilators and stuff already. What do they need? We continue to see warning signs of spikes in this upcoming winter. Could it be the medical procedure? While the Omicron variant has yet to be detected in New York State, it's coming. Oh my God, hide under your desks. The Soviet Union has, a weapon of mass destruction. The variant contains around 50 concerning mutations from the original SARS-CoV-2. I don't know where they figured that out. But apparently it mutated 50 times. Must be a busy virus. Nevertheless, the news rolled markets worldwide. The Dow posts its worst day ever in a year. Hope you're not trading on the stock market. What otherwise might be the single biggest day for retailers is going to be halted or having issues because she keeps telling people to get this thing. And in my opinion, this medical procedure is actually why these things are mutating. And she says she still keeps pushing it though, and says it remains one of our greatest weapons in fighting the scamdemic. I encourage everyone in New York to get it and get the booster if you fully got it. Just it doesn't stop. So, just kind of curious to get your thoughts about it. One, I don't think people really believe this at this point, and I just want to see people in New York at least stand up, at least say something, at least do something, at least say this is BS. I need people who do believe it's BS. Like I was talking from a guy in New York today, my friend Jesus on Facebook, come out and acknowledge this is BS at least. Otherwise, your crazy governor is going to keep going and going and going and going with this.
Yeah, well, when people stand up in front of you, there's a significant chance that the people who are watching them stand up and stand up successfully will stand up behind them, or at least stand up for themselves. And so the job of the media is to prevent you seeing that. So it may be happening all over the place. There may be this doctor, that state representative, etc., speaking out against these measures. But of course, the job of the media is to prevent those voices from being heard. So that way you lapse into despondency, and despondency is a heck of a lot less effective a method of resisting tyranny than, say, encouragement or hope, which these people might give you.
Yeah. Well, I know the elites do not care about hope. What they want you to do is be scared, be fearful, because if you can scare people. You can do what they want, whether it's this, the war on terror, financial stuff. They want you to be scared. Hide under your bed, be scared in your house. Don't do anything. Eat like bad food. Don't get any sunshine, and take a bunch of.
What I love is in New Zealand, they're not allowing the gyms to be open, but they are allowing McDonald's to be open.
Mm-hmm. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. It's fake food. All right. So I'm going to go through these things because there's a lot of crazy stuff going on. I'm not even going to get into Kenosha because I think these things are way more crazy.
There's actually a cannabis freedom group called We Are Ganj I just heard about today. But anyway, go ahead.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm just kidding. I just made that shit up.
I was going to get them on the show. I'll be like, get them in the One Great Network. Like, yeah, man. We're fighting.
I'm telling you, Rothschild's taking over, man. Like, they're not playing, man.
They're like, we should protest. No, I need a bag of chips. Like, you want to overthrow the cabal? Do you have any more cereal?
Well, it's not like I don't care. It's just I don't think it's worth the effort, you know?
So wearechange.org, good articles. Apparently, Britain, France, Israel, Italy, Singapore, which I think all have pretty high rates of taking this thing, moving fast to restrict travel from South Africa after a new variant. All these new variants, I like how they pop up, especially when like the elites are trying to do something like I said, the Gish Max Wing trial. Things are happening in the world that are about to expose them. So look, a new variant. They're saying that this one's called new. It's going to be more aggressive than the Delta variant. And here's the issue. The CEO of Pfizer, Albert Bourla, said it could take scientists 100 days to develop a novel variant vaccine to combat or medical procedure to combat new. Why are they doing it? I always look, why are they doing it? Because like every time
baiting the hook, man, they're baiting the hook. All right. Well, the thing is, if a new variant came out and stuff like that, not that any of these have actually ever been isolated, not that actually any virus in the history of man has ever actually been isolated. Yes. So that we don't actually know if they actually exist. It's still just a theory. Kind of like the theory that, well, I mean, you know, I couldn't organize a scam of this magnitude. I couldn't organize pedophilia in a Catholic church. Like this is an organization on a scale with which we've got to really take our hats on to these people. Is that they're making stuff up. The Omicron Percy I-8 variant. The new. I mean, the next time the virus is going to come down, and it's going to be like Space Invaders, and they're going to start like changing direction and moving slightly to the left instead and stuff like that. You know, the virus is going to be dropping down on you. Eep, whoop, eep. Well, I mean, they could make up anything at this point. They could say like giant alien space invaders that are the size of a micron have invaded the world, and they're taking over your brains and stuff like that, and they're telling people to believe in conspiracy theories by whispering in their ears and stuff like that. They're really big, but they've shrunk themselves down, and they're highly visible, but they're invisible.
Mainstream media.
And people. If it was repeated 1,000 times a day through every single medium, I guarantee you the vast majority of people would walk around believe it. You know, hey man, I think the government's actually a tyrannical, ruthless, criminal, sociopathic cabal of scumbaggery. And they're like, no, the aliens are telling you to say that, bro. They're inside your ears right now. I need to stab you in the ear with a freaking screwdriver or something to get them out, because the government told me to. And the government never lied, and neither did the media. The government paid for everything. You know, it's just this. It's like easy picking. Like this is the reason why they made the movie Predator. You know, the Predators were like, oh, bro, here's some easy prey right here, mate. Oh,
here's some easy prey. Okay. So,
they'll believe anything, mate. They'll believe anything. You know, just go down and go on like a dingo or a roo hunt, mate. Hell yeah. Oh, these people, they won't know what hit them.
I was gonna say last time, if the Australian media can do that many accents, I'm impressed, regardless of whether or not they're totalitarian. But why are they doing this? Why they keep? I was like, why they keep doing new? What is the actual thing going on? It seems like a good time for central bankers who want to do more aggressive tampering because all the money's fake, and we know that. And rate hike cycle in years to curb out of control inflation. U.S. markets show traders are pushing back their tightening wagers. So, in my opinion, a lot of this is probably because there's a trial coming out that can expose a lot of them, and because of inflation. That's my opinion. You can decide what you believe, but there is some good news. I wanted to bring up. So we got everybody's the winner of the 2020 election. In my opinion, why do I think he won the 2020 election? Well, he got one puppet that tanned too much. Push out.
You'll have to forgive me. I'm going to interrupt you here for just a little commercial break. Come here, puppy. Hey, here she is. She and pop into the chat room and stuff.
Hello.
It's a little baby. Hey, Bubba. Hey, look at Kareem. There you go. Look at Kareem. Can you wave to him? Can you wave to him, puppy? Can you do flip? Can you flip? There we go. There we go. Good girl. All right, everybody, donate to the videoswitchshow.com. Now, all right, thank you, puppy. Away you go. Away you go. Good girl. All right, so sorry about the interruption there. Hey, Baba, take that mummy's hand. There you go. She's figured out how to open doors, you know. She's like the velociraptors in Jurassic Park. Clever girl. You know, she just all of a sudden the door opens. You know, oh man, make you want to hide in the kitchen cupboard or something. All right, but anyway, what were we doing? We were looking at an article. Yes,
we were looking at an article. There is good news, though. I have good news. Maybe good news. Let's talk about the winner of the 2020 election. In my opinion, the winner of the 2020 election, because he got one guy who was slightly tanned and orange, who everybody thought was against the establishment, to push out his product. And then when people didn't want to take the product, that's okay. He switched it with another puppet who has dementia. And then people said, oh, let's take it. So Bill Gates has been charged with murder for doing this whole thing in India's high courts. Why? Well, I think they I find it kind of funny India kind of is doing this and not us. Like, I think we should be the ones doing it. We should have come to this realization, but at least someone did, right? So India's Bar Association is reporting that murder charges have been filed in India's high court against two billionaires responsible for AstraZeneca's medical procedure for the murder of a 23-year-old man who was injected with this medical procedure. The two named defendants are Bill Gates and Adar Poonawalla, CEO of the Serum Institute of India, and they reported the world's largest medical procedure maker. According to corporate news sources, the company produces not only this procedure, but also 50% of the world's, vaccinations and stuff like that go into kids. And basically what happened is the people who took this believed in the false narrative. Obviously, bad things happened to these doctors. And the article also states that the government's India's AEFI, adverse event following immunization, I'm guessing that's something like our VAERS system committee, has recently admitted that the death of 33-year-old Dr. Shinlin Luwat was due to the side effects of this procedure. It even goes on to quote a case law in India and makes it clear before giving any type of medical procedure or any treatment to anyone, they should be informed about the side effects of the medicine and also about the alternative remedies available, like ivermectin, or just eating healthy, or hydroxychloroquine, or vitamin D, or zinc.
Or getting sun, or getting regular exercise, or not staying up late and getting good sleep. All of these things can stop you from getting sick.
Yes. I'll admit I'm not very good at the last one. If any person gets this medical procedure, and the facts are suppressed or by telling a lie, has said that these medical procedures are completely safe and effective, guys, amount to consent being obtained under deception. Basically, if you lie about the side effects or the potential things that could happen, you are a criminal, which I completely agree with. I agree with the Indian court more than the American court now. In India, if you get any of these procedures by deception, force, or coercion, or by putting certain stifling conditions, this is a civil and criminal wrong. So Bill Gates and Adar, the partners in manufacturing the Covishield at AstraZeneca medical procedure, are being made accused for their involvement in this conspiracy. And in India, the person allowing the false marketing of this product is also guilty due to the act of commission. If convicted, they face the death penalty. As per expert opinion, considering the proofs of the sterilizing nature, Bill Gates and Adar Pawala will certainly get the death penalty. Also, just to note, it's not only the Rona, the Indian polio vaccine was sponsored by Gates, also in reference to his charges, and the article states that bail will be denied to Gates and that his assets in India will soon be confiscated. The citizens of India are now apparently have the authority to conduct citizens' arrests of both Bill Gates and Adar to hand them over to the authorities. So does India have the ability to run a covert military operation to extract Bill Gates from the U.S., for example, and bring him to trial in India? This part I don't know.
I'd just love to see Indian Special Forces landing in Malibu and taking that bastard out in a black bag over his head.
Dude, I would help him. I'm like, okay, I'd love to get your opinion. I would help him. I'm like, here's the thing. Here's his address. Come hang out. Heck, I'll host.
Yeah. Oh, you just muted yourself, Kareem.
Yeah. So, sorry, I did click the mute button. So I would love to get your thoughts on this. So one thing, it seems to me crazy because everybody says the third world needs to advance. And maybe in technology you can make that argument, but like the Indian court, all that stuff seems to me common sense. And I don't see why in America, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, they can't just be like, if you take something, you don't know the side effects and something bad happens, well, that person can be held liable. And on top of that, if that person has a history of doing malicious things, like the winner of the 2020 election, Bill Gates, then we need to take some kind of legal action. And as far as I'm concerned, the Indian, I'm making the joke, the Indian Special Forces coming down. But hey, to me, that would be great. I'd get
some kind of Punjabi paramilitary, parachuting into Philadelphia to extract Bill Gates and fighting off all his guards and stuff like that. It's walking robot sentries and stuff. Just it'd be great to see. But I think that what's going to happen is more likely is that Bill Gates is just going to stop going to India. And instead, what he's going to do is he's just going to pay off people in India to do all his vaccine distributing and propagandizing and so on and stuff like that, so that he can continue to escape justice for the rest of his life, because he is, as Joe Atwill correctly coined the term, or at least is trying to popularize the term, a lifetime actor. This guy's not there necessarily because he is who he is and he did what he did or whatever. No, he's playing a role for the elite. He's giving you somebody to root for. He's giving you a bad guy. They're giving you a face. The true rulers of this earth don't have no faces. You don't see them in the movies. You don't see them in headlines. Never. They own the movie studios. They own the newspapers. You think you'd ever hear their name manufactured if it wasn't for us?
No, probably not. Nobody's going to drop the name take a look at the Vanderbilts, take a look at the Bilderbergers, take a look at the CFR, take a look at any of them. No one's going to name drop them. And I think for two reasons. One, they're either scared, or two, they don't know. But to me, Bill Gates, I'm not saying Bill Gates is at the top of any hierarchy whatsoever, but I make the same kind of claim that Passio does with order followers. They can't run the curtain they can't run the show if they don't have actors and order followers to get the show done. As far as I'm concerned, if it wasn't for them, Like I always make the argument, if there's no order followers, all they'd be doing is sitting in rooms saying, I'd like to do this, I'd like to do this, I'd like to control this, I'd like to depop. Oh, do we have anyone to do that? We don't have any actors. So I still think, even though he's an actor, even though he's the villain on the screen, and there's someone behind the curtains, and then there's probably someone behind the curtains behind them. Like, okay, fine, behind Gates, I see there's Soros. Behind Soros, everybody say he's at the top of the hierarchy. I don't even believe that. There's someone else. There's some family on top of that. Heck, who knows? Vatican, something behind them.
Let's face facts here. In the New Zealand underground, the gangs and all of that kind of thing, a contract on somebody's life, 20 grand. All right. Next, all right, all the Indian government has to do is sit and goddamn wait for the next trip Bill Gates takes to New Zealand to look at his new data cloud infrastructure. Send a couple of little bags of silver to the New Zealand gang's ways. He'll be deader than breakfast by lunchtime, mate. I swear to God. It'll be clean. It'll be methodical. It'll be thorough. And it will be righteous. Now, I'm just kidding. I have no idea about any of these underground sort of things. And I am not encouraging any breaches of the COVID-19 rules, by the way, to the police watching. Now, go ahead.
I am. I'm not in New Zealand, so I say break all the rules. Let's get the Punjabi military to break down Microsoft. Like, I came here to worship Krishna and capture Bill Gates, and I'm all out of Krishna. I don't know. Something like that. Do it better than Rodney Piper. Not a good actor, but I love that movie. But
well, I did that the day before I got arrested. I have come here to chew bubble gum and tell bad jokes. And I'm all out of bubble gum.
I like it. So to me, I think that's good news, at least.
Speaking of which, why was Vinny Eastwood able to send an email?
Why?
Because the judge varied his bail conditions. But anyway, continue.
But at least, I think the more important question I want to ask here is this: regardless if you get special forces to pull Bill Gates or whatever happens to Bill Gates, he's not a spring chicken. Heck, who knows? Maybe the Maxwell trial gets him. But I think the fundamental,
a well-trained trial could take him out. I'm just being honest here. I've been down to Oliver MMA, and you see some of these 12-year-old kids and stuff like that fighting and stuff like that, and I was like, man, they could really hurt me, and I'm 6'6", and I'm telling you, man, there are many opportunities. There's a lot of thought processing to go through here. How do we do it? Just how do we? I'm sorry, continue.
No, but the more important question is, India kind of made some extremely reasonable points to me that are common sense. Like Dr. Ron Paul back in the day said, hey, if you bomb people, they don't like you. Like, oh, imagine that. It doesn't exactly take a rocket scientist to say that. Also, if you take any type of medical procedure and you don't know the side effects and something bad happens, people should be held liable. I don't see that as being anything crazy. Because, you can get rid of one bad guy, and then somebody else can come along and say, hey, wasn't he terrible, and do the same thing, and then it's another problem. So I don't see why people in the Western world can't come up and say what India said, which is just really two things. If you take something and you don't know that side effects, the person should be held liable. It should be a criminal and civil offense. And if someone has a history of pushing this maliciously and malicious behavior, then, you can sentence them to either jail or the death penalty or some kind of criminal thing. I think that's one of the main things
I've said it on the show many times. People like Bill Gates, they don't feel anything for the damage that they do to people, the harm that they cause to entire societies. And I don't require them to. The only thing I require them to feel is that sensation of strangling to death while their feet are frantically trying to find the floor that is far too far below their feet to reach. That's the only thing I think they should feel.
Yeah. My thing is, psychopaths will always exist. Like, after these guys are gone, you can get a whole new set of psychopaths. You know what I mean? It's not like
You pull a weed out, another weed grows in its place eventually.
Yeah, and that's what all the people have said to me, like, oh, just get Gates, get Schwab, and all these people. I said, yeah, I agree with you. They've done terrible things. You should have. But the fundamental question is, I want the courts in the West to be like, look, if you take any procedure, whether it's a medical procedure, a pill, a patch, food, something, and you get weird side effects, and they didn't report those side effects, there should be some kind of consequences for the person distributing that product, service, medical procedure, whatever that is. And if that person does it consistently, or that corporation doesn't consistently, then yeah, arrest him, jail, death, do something. To me, it's not so much that, okay, I like joking about that send in a team, or, that get rid of Bill Gates, but I think the Western world needs to reevaluate how they're judging medical procedures, get rid in the United States of this Reagan thing that allows companies not to have any liability, especially for vaccine, and just say, hey, if someone gets hurt from these, if they don't know the side effects, then we have to look into it. And if we see that there was malintent, criminal or civil prosecution. On top of that, if they keep doing it, jail.
As far as I'm concerned, ignorance of the law is no excuse. And it's been against the law for a long time to kill your patients if you're a doctor, right? And
Yes.
At the moment, if the doctors are ignorant of the fact that they're killing their patients and stuff like that, they need to be on the chopping block as well.
Okay.
Every cop, every police officer, every nurse, every single person from the lowest to the highest who's been involved in this thing, ignorant or not, unwitting or willing, they all need to experience consequences for their actions. Now, you might have an argument for let's kill them all and let God sort them out later. But I think that there's a good portion of these people who are basically so brainwashed and so dangerous that they actually you not only shouldn't let them live because of how many people they've murdered through their actions,
mm-hmm.
but also the fact that you shouldn't jail them, because then it puts a burden of the finance of trying to actually continue to afford to keep these people in jail perpetually, when the only thing that they're going to do when they're in there is teach other people how to be better, more cunning, more ruthless, more disgusting criminals.
This is true. Yeah, I don't
see solution one again.
I do not disagree with that. I'd say the biggest thing, though, is tell the order followers, the people pushing this, stop. Just stop. Because if there is no order followers, regardless of who you have, they can't do anything. They'd just be sitting there, as I said, twiddling their thumbs, saying, I want to control these, but I can't. So speaking of order followers, this is close to you, Mike. It's not quite New Zealand, but I'd like to see if this is true. I had just heard about this today. Apparently, the Australian military is going door to door to find people, Aboriginals, like Native American Indians here, who haven't got this medical procedure, and then give it to them as force. And they also said they have facilities opening. So many parts of Australia have become a totalitarian police state with martial law. I don't think that's even disputable at this point. The government has now targeted Aboriginals who have not got this procedure, and they're going door to door in communities to forcibly get them. Leaders in this community have called upon the nations of the world to take actions and stop this, in addition to these different facilities that they've opened in some areas. COVID World Today published an exclusive report from someone inside one of these facilities in Australia, and now they have details about what's going on there, and it's beginning to leak out on the internet, which is why I'm reporting on it, because the mainstream media will never touch this with a 20-foot pole, although the information can't be verified. So I'm going to say I don't know for sure. A lot of people are talking about it, and they decided to report upon it, despite a lot of people getting these procedures and all these tests and stuff like that. Jumping through hoops doesn't work. One within 24 hours, all negative. He still was forced into one of these places. And in the post, the writer says that he was forced onto a bus with blackout windows by armed guards for a 2-hour ride to a camp. Inmates are allegedly forced to take this, and they're also tested regularly, and detainees are charged $2,500 for their 2-week taxpayer-funded involuntary vacation, as Adam Kokesh would put it. Although the inmates do get internet, they're monitored, the GPS is blocked, and a lot of different posters suggest that he was put in the Howard Springs, if you're familiar with that location, Vinny, National Resilience Center. And this is a page of what this looks like. They asked me if I got the procedure. He declined to answer. They threatened and told me come with them and call for backup. They were questioned, code to follow. He was boarded on a bus. They had to sit rows apart. Were brought here. The windows were blacked out. He said, I don't know how long I can post here, but I came to tell you it's worse than you know. There is a girl, or there was one here, who fought a guard, and we haven't seen here for 6 days. There was also another anonymous poster claimed he was next door to a 77-year-old man who had drank too much, and he died after being repatriated. And he further claimed that detainees could only leave their room once every 3 days to do laundry. There are police everywhere, and that you would be yelled at if you stopped or walked too slow. And the anonymous poster claimed he did not have $2,500 for his stay and wondered what would happen if he didn't pay. He also said he would comply with whatever they ordered within reason. They did say the food was pretty good. And they dropped the inmates once a day at 6 p.m. And they get 1 hot, 2 cold meals. And the Howard Springs facility has been in the news recently to the decision of the Northern Territory government being forcibly shipping 38 Aboriginal people to the Binjari to this place. And this facility has the capacity to house 3,000 people, 2,000 international, and 1,000 domestic travelers. It's unknown how many people are currently at this place. So, Vinny, you're quite close to this place. I don't know anybody from Australia who can report on this. Do you have any more insight than me? Am I wrong about this? Because here's the thing. I always say correlation's not causation just because it sounds very plausible. I'm not going to say I know for sure it's happening, but if I had to flip a coin and say, do you believe this is happening? I'd say it is. And
I mean, have a look at Australia and have a look at all the things. I mean, if these people are willing to, 4 police officers bowl over viciously a 70-year-old woman who's just holding a sign and then spray her with pepper spray while she's down on the ground, you think they'd bat an eyelid about kidnapping village elders and forcing them to undertake medical procedures and putting them into detention? They wouldn't give it a second thought. So the fact that this is being reported at all should immediately go, okay, it's probably happening. The reason why is because this is too crazy and too scary for anybody to just make up, and more to the point. Sorry. I'm muted here. Okay, sorry guys, I was just muted there on my own streams there. But anyway, more to the point. The thing about this whole thing is once it's reported in the alternative media, what's the difference between a conspiracy theory and breaking news?
Nothing.
About 3 months. All right. Now, that's the interesting thing here is like, let's say we don't know exactly what's going on here or whatever, and it's just a conspiracy theory at this point. I remember the day that the COVID-19 outbreak was really announced and the lockdowns and all of that kind of stuff came to New Zealand. On that day, I'd already received information about it being a corrupted lab virus or something like that may have been deliberately released. And it wasn't until nowadays that stuff's actually been come out public as now public knowledge or whatever, like a year and a bit after the fact. So let's face facts here. I use what I call Occam's razor. All right, Occam's razor is when you look at 2 possibilities. One of them sounds really too complicated, and the other one sounds like the most simple. Mm-hmm. Usually, the most simple one tends to be the correct one. Now, Occam's razor is when there's 2 possibilities, one of which sounds really rosy and you want it to be true, and one of them sounds so messed up that you pray to God that it's not true. That's the one that's true.
Yeah. In my experience, that's been true, especially even when I first got on this. I'm like, oh, David Icke has some good points. about like the Arab-Israeli conflict, but there's no way the stuff he's talking about with like the different things is true. And then I found out, hey, almost all of it is pretty much true. So I guess my question is, just I need to bring this information out, and I'm definitely doing it on YouTube, going to put it on Rumble, going to put it on Odyssey and all those places. Is there anything else that we can do, especially this is going on? This is scary. Like, people listening, I don't know if they know how scary this is. If this is indeed happening, this is scary. I mean, basically, they couldn't do anything but just do laundry, and even then, they're being monitored. And then at this point, like, there's a guy who drank too much and he's gone. And this is pretty intense. This is pretty intense. Like, when I saw this, I'm like, wow.
Could you imagine how much the people in the concentration camps, the blacks, the gays, the gypsies, and the Jews, who are all in these concentration camps, disabled people, retarded people, and so on and so forth, the Untermensch, all right, the unworthy of life. All right. Now, imagine how they would have prayed that there was some media anywhere in the world that would have told people about what was happening to them. And sure enough, there was. At the time, there was a lot of media coverage talking about the concentration camps and things of that nature. But you know what we did? And by we, I mean all of our governments. We ignored all those reports, not because we didn't think they were true, but because it was politically convenient to ignore them.
Yeah. Well, I will say even like Prescott Bush, I do believe. Prescott Bush, George
Trading with the Enemy Act, yeah.
Grandfather had deals with the Weimar Republic at the time, and I think it was over gold and stuff, and there were people like...
Oh, it wasn't just gold. It was all of their raw resources, pig iron, iron plate, wire, demolitions, TNT. Basically, if you had to really categorize it, about a third of the Nazi war effort was okayed and financed through the corporations that the grandfather of George W. Bush, President George W. Bush, set up, Prescott Bush. Now, prosecuted under the Trading with the Enemy Act, but just like all the other people who got prosecuted at that time, all their charges seemed to disappear. And despite the fact that Major General Smedley Butler, in my opinion, probably the greatest Marine who has ever lived, recipient of 2 Medals of Honor, writer of War is a Racket, this man was approached by people to install and lead the army to install a fascist dictatorship in the United States. He went before Congress to tell them what he knew, and because they had already been corrupted so deeply, all these people who this great and honorable man, who every military historian should know the name of, said to them, they let them all off scot-free. And today, I think they may have been successful at that time already of setting up the fascist dictatorship, and they didn't need Smedley Butler and his military expertise to do it. They used their money, their mind control, and their scumbaggery.
Yeah, I agree. Well, they had to get JFK out of the way, in my opinion, first, so I don't think they succeeded then and there. I also do think Prescott Bush, correct me if I'm wrong, was kicked out of Congress when they found out. Also, Warburg was the one, in my opinion, who funded the Soviet side, if I'm not mistaken. That was from the late and great Jim Mars, who talked about that. Warburg funded. So, yeah, they funded both sides to fight each other. And, yeah, that's crazy as well. But I think now the one fundamental difference is between here and the Weimar Republic is we have social media. And they can block things, they can fact check them, they can put little labels and say don't look here, but it still exists. You can't own the internet like you can't own crypto, and because we're getting this information out there, I'm even going to say, regardless that I don't know it's 100% true, but using Occam's razor, it probably is. We can get this out now to stop this from further happening. It's already scary what's going on. And in my opinion, it's scary because other people are taking a look and saying, other leaders are taking a look and saying, yeah, let's do this. So why people ask, why do I focus on Austria so much? Because people are going to, other crazy leaders, other totalitarians are going to say, ooh, I can use this for a blueprint. Look what they did in Australia and Austria, which people confuse all the time. But
like on Dumb and Dumber, oh, that's a lovely accent you have there. Where's that from? Austria. Austria! Well, good day, mate. Let's put another shrimp on the barbie.
Okay, mate. A dingo ate your baby. Dingo. Blimey. I want to be one of the bruvs.
Yes, you see, I'm the Austrian who the dingo ate the baby off.
Right, I'm Australian.
Sorry, I crack me up. I do. I'm sorry.
Can I be one of the bruvs, mate? I'd like to be one of the bruvs. I'm not quite English. I'm not quite Australian, but I like the word bruv. I think it means bro in English, but we don't commonly use it in the United States.
Yeah, nice one, bruv. Yeah.
Bruv, yeah. Is that more formal? Like you got the tie? All right. So, in more totalitarian, garbage, Slovakia.
In more totalitarian news, Slovakia follows Austria into lockdown amid record surge in COVID cases. I love it how it's in all capitals. COVID cases.
Rona.
Just in case you didn't hear that, COVID.
COVID. Rona. I call it Rona, beer flu.
Rona, mate. Oh, well, that's actually a Rebellion Gaia. You can go and buy the game now on Steam. And they've ported it to Mac, they've ported it to PC, they've ported it to the cell phone, and it's great, man. All these truther references and everything. It's actually the first fully truther produced video game, and there's an outbreak of a Rona virus in the game and stuff like that. They're making all these jokes and all these references, so it's real good. And I did about 32 of the voices. I think Jeff Berwick did one, Max Egan did one, G. Edward Griffin did one, Ollie Damagard did one. I did 32, including the 8 creatures. Most of the bad guys.
I'm going to make like a Destiny game or like a first-person shooter, since that's a fun thing. And like the first thing you'll have to do is like, fight W, and then you can get perks, and then you can fight like the Rothschild, and like the last bosses are like Moloch and Bull. You got to fight them at the same time. In the Vatican, it'll be cool.
I think it would be, what if there's a I don't know, there's a Bilderberg group meeting and you and a whole bunch of other guys are like going in and what have you, but they've got like all this cool technology that like pops up to defend them, missile pods and whatnot. You got to get around them. You got to get into the facility. You've got to track down each and every single one of the Bilderberg people members, and they've got underground parking and they've got bulletproof limos. They've got all sorts of things. You could actually make it into a really, really awesome game.
Yeah,
because all these guys and I think the one of the gimmicks of the game would be that all these guys have this amazing technology, these incredible guys that protect them, but as soon as you get rid of them and you throw a punch or something like that, they explode like a balloon full of talcum powder, as Mark Passio would say.
Yeah, well, what I think is interesting, or what I think is going to be interesting, is if people, because here's the thing, people want to escape. And the whole idea is like, well, reality's harsh, so I want to escape. But if you put this in fun multimedia, games, movies, other types of stuff that people can watch or play around with, then they can start to like, oh, waking up's fun now. It's not just like watching Alex Jones and be like, everything, the water's making the frogs, do bad things. If you can make it fun. If you can make waking up fun, I think that's a great thing from an ANCAP perspective. Not that it's a fun experience or feeling, but hey, a video game for truthers, yeah, I love it. I wish I could have done voiceovers because I do voiceovers on Fiverr. But anyway, so what is Slovakia doing? The government followed the example of its neighbor Austria on Wednesday. I guess totalitarianism is really the virus spreading in order to 2-week lockdown to quell the world's rise in the fastest Rona cases.
Well, this is actually the first virus recorded that can be cured with communism. But go ahead.
Yeah, apparently not, because it's maybe communism is a virus. Oh. Restaurants and non-essential. I like how they say non-essential. How do you decide if something's non-essential? Will close as part of measures and movement, and it will be limited to trips for essential working, shopping, school, or medical visits, along with walks in nature. Walks in nature, because from a Rona.
That's a joke, because at the moment, like all around New Zealand and Auckland and stuff like that, they're basically closing off all the nature walks, all the bush walks and things like that. Just these big signs here. Oh, mate, there's a Kauri dieback. Oh, you guys can't come in there, mate. You guys are spreading this terrible disease and this variant around. Really, isn't it anything to do with the $50 million worth of retroactively diabolical 1080 poison that you drop in, and all the things that kill all the microbes in the soil, so that the leaves and everything like that, when they come down, don't break down, and so the fungus actually comes in to fill up the stuff? Nah, you're just a conspiracy theory. Shut up. You don't go for a walk.
Yeah. Don't go for a walk in nature. I'm like the most basic thing is like, I want to go for a walk in nature by myself. I'm like, well, I didn't go to no fancy school or nothing, but if you're walking in nature by yourself, I'm pretty sure you can't infect anybody. I don't know. But Slovakia on Tuesday.
Well, hey, it's a sneaky virus. You know,
it's a scurry bird flu. Ain't scared, no bar flu. So Slovakia on Tuesday registered more than 10,000. This is BS. But they said they hit a critical point. 10,000 in a country of millions. The situation is serious. They also, I like how they say this, but they don't tell you how many recovered. Just something to think about. The situation is serious, Prime Minister.
Did they tell you how many died?
No, they didn't
tell you how many with comorbidities when they do tell you who died. You know, see, this is the thing. They can hide statistics very, very much in plain sight.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because if you said, 10,000 got it, but 9,998 recovered. Oh, well.
The situation is serious, Prime Minister Edward Hegel said. We got here because the existing measures were not observed.
I wish they would start talking like that, so people are like, oh, I see what they mean here. Hey, what's that book you're reading? Oh, Mein Kampf. How convenient. So adjusted for population size and control, although that's not here, but I'm adding it. Slovakia is experiencing the world's fastest rise in Rona, led by other European countries. Maybe it's because of a medical procedure. I'm just saying. The neighboring Czech Republic and Hungary both registered a record daily rise in cases. On Tuesday, Austria put a total lockdown this week, shutting down essential shops, bars, cafes.
Just thinking about this, I was like, we have just had a record amount of tests in our country. And in other news, we've also had a record amount of infections reported. It's like, maybe it's to do with the PCR test that gives 100% false positives, bro. Maybe I'm just taking a stab in the dark. You know, maybe I'm not up with the play like you guys, you know, in the health profession.
Yeah, the health profession. So Slovakia wants to go down to a lockdown. But before, actually, they already put more restrictions on people who didn't get the procedure in a bid to push up inoculations. Before that, they've been gradually pushing more restrictions. Hager said, well, at the end of 10 days, any loosening would be only for people who took this procedure. So people are like, oh, Kareem, it's 10 days. No big deal, right? That's just a week and a few days. I can get through 10 days. Yeah, but the restrictions don't come off unless you get this thing. And I can definitely see them pulling the Austria card where they're like, oh, I got it. We don't care. Everybody's locked down. Regardless of what you didn't do, what you think, everybody's locked down. You can't leave unless you get it.
Right, it's a bait and switch. Anybody who thinks that getting a vaccine is going to give you your freedoms back permanently, or that things are going to go back to normal, is terribly misinformed. This is not going to stop. They're not going to stop locking you down. Now they can lock you down anytime. You think they're going to give up that power? Now they can vaccinate you anytime. You think they're going to give up that power? How many psychopaths do you know? How many of them just suddenly have a crisis of conscience? Oh my God, I'm a scumbag and I murder children every day. I've got to stop myself. No, they don't have those realizations. All right, when you have a bad situation and a bad time with somebody in the middle of the day or something like that, even at that night, you're still thinking about it and you're tossing back and forth because that's your conscience keeping you awake. It doesn't allow you to sleep when you're feeling bad about yourself and bad about the things that you've done and bad about the things that people have done to you. Psychopaths don't have that problem. What'd you do today, honey? I raped and murdered 20 children. Good night, honey.
Yeah, no, literally, they don't.
Out like a light.
But my problem actually is this. It's not, psychopaths will always exist. I'm convinced of that. I'm not sure that, I've heard Iboga can cure them on like the Richie Spencer show with David Icke. I'm not 100%. Maybe you can cure psychopathy with Iboga. Well, there's two kinds of psychopaths. There's primary who are born with it, and there's secondary who are kind of like, well, they've just been kind of order following so long they don't think about it. I don't know if you can fix primary with Iboga, but I could think a lot of people who are secondary psychopaths could see this and wake the heck up and at least stop enforcing this. Because here, less than 50% of people got this. So they're not complying. It's the third lowest rate in the European Union, which should be disbarred in my opinion, and people should leave like Brexit. But they're saying, oh, the people who haven't got this have the majority of cases and hospitalizations. One thing I want to make clear is if you get this procedure, there's still a 2-week period. Still a 2-week period before you're considered that you have this. So it could be.
And by the way, they're now having the 32nd Brexit referendum, and they promise this is going to be the last one. Like, absolutely, it's going to be the last one. So you vote your way into freedom out of a totalitarian dictatorship. We passed a referendum, mate. We gave our opinions on a piece of paper. Oh, really? Oh, man, that's terrifying to me, a brutal psychopath with unlimited nuclear warheads and mind control. I mean, whatever will I do?
I will say one thing. I'm not necessarily against using the political system if you can use it to decentralize. I've kind of come around on that. I used to just say no, don't use it at all. But hey, if it's still used, I know there's different thoughts on that. I'll go with the Jeff Berwick thing. If the political system exists, might as well still use it. That doesn't mean other people have to, like, Passio and Larkin Rose. I get it. They don't have Eric July. I respect that. They don't have to use it. I want to use it to decentralize.
Well, just so long as you understand that you're participating in a moral system. Like, for example,
I get it.
I participated in the last election in New Zealand, I knew that I was participating in an immoral system. And as a result, there was only one person I could support, and that was a moral candidate.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think, like, we had Aaron Joyce on here, if you remember, Irish Freedom Party. There's Rick Falkvenia of the Dutch Pirate Party. There's the PPC in Canada with Maxime Bernier. I can't do the French thing. We have the Mises Caucus here. We have the Libertarian Party, which I'm not a fan of the major Libertarian Party, but I like the Mises Caucus. We have ANCAPs here. There's other different things exist.
Australia One Party and Ricardo Bossi in Australia, yeah.
I did talk to one guy from, I don't know who it was, the Australian Libertarian Party, but he said it's small and they're still trying to get up. But I get it. It's an immoral system. It's not ideal. It's not something I like. I still participate in it because if it's a mechanism I can use in the toolbox to limit corruption, to limit coercion, then
yeah. What I love is the people who go, oh man, the second I vote, it means that they've got power over me. Really? So you're saying that abstaining from voting and not participating in the political process means that suddenly the totalitarian laws that they pass all the time anyway suddenly don't frickin' apply to you? All right, they're not going to enforce them against you. Oh, this guy didn't vote. No, sorry, mate. Sorry to bother you.
Yeah, I get both arguments. I get the agorist argument of don't participate because it's immoral, and I like that. And I also get the argument of, well, if we have this system, you can still try and use it. I get it. I know who runs it, but you can at least try and put a dent in the Death Star. Use that reference. So, this last two stories. Let's take it more domestic to America right now. So, Biden, who does not, I don't think he knows what the heck he's doing. Someone behind him probably. He said he has a new trucking priority. You have to get the procedure. So Biden's administration announced today that all non-essential, non-residence travelers crossing the U.S. land borders, such as truck drivers, which that one's the huge one. I don't really care about government and I care about emergency response officials. I don't really care about government. Like, do whatever you want with them. Like, they're part of a coercive monopoly on force. But truck drivers and emergency response officials is scary. Are required to get this procedure by January 22nd. I don't know how people freak out about that because you need truck drivers to get anything. I get it. The food's not good, Vinny, but I still want to get the bad, not good food from the truck drivers. That's still like to get some kind of nutrient somewhere, and they still need emergency response people after eating all that fake food.
I mean, well, if you think the food the truck drivers are delivering is real bad, think about the truck drivers themselves having to live off of truck stop food the entire time they're working.
This is true. And also, supply chain shortages are bad now. Imagine how bad they're going to get after January 22. And a lot of people are like, oh, this is Biden. Let's put in another guy. I'm like, dude, this is people way, way behind. They're doing this on purpose. It's not like some magical thing that, oh, well, you just switch Biden for another guy. Magically, they're going to, all this is going to be right.
And then so far, I've discovered real three levels of this sort of awakening process. It's like, number one, you awaken to the fact that politics is BS, basically.
Yeah.
And then number two, that you realize that almost everything is BS, basically. And then you start to come to realization number three, oh my God, all my beliefs and all the things that I care about are BS too. That's the real tough one.
That one sucks because, hey, look, I grew up in the 90s. I believe you did too, or parts of the 80s. And I had a pretty good childhood and stuff. And the world is a lot, learning about this and what was really going on, the world's a lot more sinister than I wanted to believe. I wanted to believe it was a few bad actors just locally, and it's not. And kind of when the illusion's gone, I think that was the most painful thing to say, hey, I was living in an illusion, a nice illusion, but it was still an illusion. And
well, that's why people call you disillusioned, because you're no longer living under a delusion.
Yes. So in my opinion, that's the hardest goal to pass, like you're saying, and that's the most painful one. Because you can get over, okay, politics is BS. I never liked Democrats or Republicans. Okay, well, religion and these other institutions and the medical field is mostly BS and a lot of these, okay, I can kind of live with that and do the natural thing. But like my whole schema of life is what I perceive to be normal and good was BS. And that I can understand why people don't, because that's a hard leap to take. And it leaves you pessimistic and optimistic. Anyway, what is this going to cause? A trucking nightmare. Supply chain horrors feared as thousands of people, especially truck drivers, won't be allowed to cross the U.S.-Canada border because they did not get this medical procedure. So I agree with this. Even if every single company gets all these procedures up to 90%, that's still 12,000 truck drivers who are calling on both governments to delay the deadline. That means if everyone gets it, there's going to be a huge delay. I agree with this. We need every truck driver we can get now, and then some. 2020, 309 billion of freight traveled by truck between the U.S. and Canada, which was 58.8% of all northern border freight. And this is according to the Bureau of Transportation Statistics. I don't know if that's true. You can take it based on what you believe and what you see empirically. That was 9.9% less than 2019. In the pandemic recovery and the surge in spending goods, we can expect more than $309 billion of truck freight in 2020. Steve Bamford of Toronto Wholesale is quoted by, the supply chain is already broken. You can't take 20% of the workforce out of the mix and not expect to have a major impact. I don't care.
That's the whole idea: problem, reaction, solution. As soon as the supply chain thing cracks down, everybody will be like, "Oh my God, you need to mandate all the people. You need to force them to work. You need to do this, that, and the other in order to keep us safe and blah blah blah, and keep us supplied, so I can sit on my ass and watch the government propaganda, and then tell my neighbors that they shouldn't have any rights anymore, and report them to the local Stasi." You know, this kind of thing. They're just programming us, man. And I think it comes down to this. It's either the people who want freedom are going to shut down the supply chain and force a change in the way that they want, or the elite are going to do it. All right. So it's just a question of who reaches it first.
Well, yeah, I've always told people the elite are not the ones in power. They need us. We don't need them. So if truck drivers say no, and hey, it might suck for a few weeks, you're not going to see the shelf stocked. But let's say, hey, no, truck drivers, do not take this. Stand your ground. Keep going. Keep resisting. I don't care if they say it's good and stuff. Look, and I'll even say this: if a truck driver says they want to get it, they think it's good. I ultimately believe in freedom, even if it's a decision I wouldn't do. They can get it, but to force people with mandates and stuff is not only BS, it's totalitarian, and it's not going to work. You need to push back, because if you don't push back and you jump through a hoop, they'll make more hoops. As that little meme with Lisa from The Simpsons says, compliance, if we comply, we'll get our rights back. She's like, no, that's how prison works. And they're turning this into a prison. I disagree with Mark Passio. It's a prison already. It's becoming a prison if we don't stop complying, and if we don't stop trying to rewrite history. And this is,
I don't know, man. I mean, after actually going to jail and then getting out, and then seeing everybody walking around with their masks, obeying the traffic lights and the laws, and paying for their parking, which their taxes already paid for those parking spaces and stuff like that. I think you're either in a prison or an open air prison, but an open air prison is still a prison.
It is true. However, the only way they can truly imprison you is to imprison your mind and your consciousness. If there's still people out there, in my opinion, we have. Granted, I'm not going to say, oh, we're close to a free society or a voluntary society, but I will say this: at this time in human history, we have quite a lot more freedoms, in my opinion, than other like Sasha Day Game said. Yeah, okay, they don't have you in prison. Yeah, there's a lot of things you can't do, but there's still a lot. Like, I can have this show, I can go out and talk to people about this for now. And while I can still do that, while it's not completely gone, there's still some semblance of hope left to turn this around. When
the people fear their government, there is tyranny. When the government fears the people, there is liberty. Thomas Jefferson. And here we have a statue of Thomas Jefferson being removed from the New York City Hall. Yeah.
So, and he's one of my favorite founding fathers, aside from Patrick Henry. And yeah, I get it. Kareem, you're going to say he's a Federalist. And yes, I'm an anti-Federalist. I get it. But he still had some good insight. One of his favorite quotes was about the Native Americans. He said he admired the Native Americans because they were anarchists, because they didn't have like a centralized power to govern them. But, we civilized people, we have a government. I'm like, okay, how's that working out for you? And for people saying, hey, just follow the Constitution, well, they're going to remove all the history so you don't know what it says. And on top of that, here's the funny thing. Do psychopaths really care if there's a Constitution? I don't think that's to me as dumb as saying criminals should follow gun restriction,
gun bans,
safety laws. So, last story of the day: TJ, Thomas Jefferson, has been removed from a city hall in New York because the founder and third president enslaved people. Yeah, he had slaves, and yeah, he had an affair with one, but he also gave them freedom afterwards. And in my opinion, everyone had slaves back then. It's not that TJ was necessarily an advocate of all of this. And even if he was, he's one of the people who helped founded America, which if you're watching from right now, that's where you're at. He got the Jeffersonian democracies idea, which gave you the freedom you have now. And people are all flawed. You can find your favorite heroes and say, oh, okay, Martin Luther King had an affair. Mother Teresa did this. Gandhi did this. You know, I don't know anybody historically. Even the people who you call saints haven't done. Hey, Saint Augustine, he really, really liked the ladies before he got onto that Christianity thing. So maybe you should stop judging. But anyway, the decision.
Yeah, well, we all have our crosses to bear, I suppose.
Yeah, I don't think, like, when people like this person did this and that and the other, I'm like, okay, fine. But like, unless it's something violating somebody else's rights, if it's just bad decisions, hey, I have, 10 pages of bad decisions I made. I'm sure we all do. The decision to remove it was made earlier this year after a period of introspection, whatever, in the wake of different, neo-Nazi or far-right disturbances.
So let me get this straight. Some guy had a disturbance in some place, and therefore we don't have our founding fathers around anymore from hundreds of years ago.
Pretty much.
This is what they call introspection. Right, looking within. This is what they're trying to do.
Yeah. Well, I'll back it up by saying this. George Carlin warned how they're going to use soft language to hide reality, and he was more talking about like social aspects, like, okay, I don't go to a doctor, I go to a maintenance care position to consult a wellness professional. So, in my opinion, you just keep distorting language. Shell shock is PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm like, what is or operational exhaustion? You just keep changing the language, and then all of a sudden, we don't want yes, Ted Turner. Oh, what do you want to do? We want sustainability. What does that mean? Well, we want a sustainable amount of. What does that mean? We need to remove, some of the people who aren't as productive. What do you mean by remove? Oh, okay. What's introspection? Oh, someone got offended by a dude. 200. It's just like Columbus Day. Like, people, I'm not going to say Columbus is a great person or this or that or whatever, but he died hundreds of years ago. If Thomas Jefferson, Christopher Columbus, this guy, that guy, the other guy are still bugging.
So suffice to say, if the guy had sinned, he's already paid for them.
Yeah, I would think, or heck, maybe he's down there with Colin Powell and your buddy John McCain, and he's getting used to the dry heat. So you can be happy. So in 2000, the Jefferson Memorial conceded there was a high probability that he fathered children with enslaved people. Yeah, that's true. But okay, all that's true. But this is hundreds of years ago. He gave you.
So he's racist who slept with black women.
Yeah, apparently.
This is why they want him to be removed.
Yeah. And now people.
This is starting to make a perfect sense. Now go on.
So I don't even make sense of this. The fact is that all your so-called heroes have done something bad and done something you'd find distasteful, probably, including, everybody in politics. So maybe instead of doing that, you should see the fact that because of his work with Washington, the other founding fathers, you got one of the freest countries on the planet for at least 100 years or a few hundred years. I will say, though, that I don't think it was perfect, and the Constitution does not stop authoritarians. It's not stopping them now. We should probably look at the anti-federal.
It's a piece of paper. It's men with guns. Ultimately, that will always be the one that are protecting the farms and the villages and the cities and the countries and that kind of thing. But those men, if they have weapons but no morality behind that scope, the people who they perceive to be the enemy, the people who they will kill, will be their own.
So they're actually mixed opinions. One person said it should be destroyed. A statue should be those who we honor for their exemplary service. I don't know. Setting up a Jefferson democracy, as long as you don't do it with force, I'm not advocating for neocons here, but if you set up a Jeffersonian classical liberal democracy and it works and it spreads freedom, I don't know. That seems to me like exemplary service. But it says the duty of all this country, not just people who are Caucasian. Whatever, it's stupid. Michael Bogert says, deflects attention from the actions of controversial figures. I have a philosophical problem with removing it from City Hall, she said. If you can remove Thomas Jefferson's statue, then you can remove the works from other city buildings. You can change.
That's the exact point. They're already removing statues all over New Zealand as well.
Yeah. And the thing, they're like, why do you care about a statue? Because they can change the history. They can change everything you know about freedom. They can change where classical liberalism came from. And I'm not a classical liberal myself, but I can appreciate the work in it that has led to different ideas. If it wasn't for classical liberalism, I could not have the ability to come up with ideas that, you know, I'm presenting now, such as the anarcho-capitalism flag. Minarchism wouldn't, in my opinion, have come about. Different ideas of freedom and anarchy wouldn't have come about. A lot of them originated in the United States and took from classical liberal thought. And I would even say some people who work in the truther movement are really, really strong with the classical liberal stuff, like you and Passio, and a lot of people talk about the founding fathers, especially Passio, and reference, you know, Thomas Paine's understanding of natural law, like man should have only natural law as his servant. So that's my problem with it. If these people, if the understanding of these people disappear from history, then it's going to be a lot harder to fight these totalitarian regimes. And that's pretty much all I got for here. We're on the hour. So, Vinny, if it's cool, I'm going to do a quick plug for you, and then we can wrap it up. Do you have anything else about Thomas Jefferson or any of this stuff, or any ideas or thoughts on how we like kind of beat all this stuff? And then I'm not saying go back to...
Well,
to
one thing that speaks to mind is I think a doctor around the time of the Revolution sent a letter to Thomas Jefferson saying, Mr. Jefferson, sir, how can we create a government whereby bad men will not become in charge? And Jefferson wrote a letter back to him, laughing at him, ostensibly, saying, good sir, there are no such thing as good men in government or bad men. There is only the chains of legislation that must bind them to the Constitution. That is the only thing that matters, sir.
I agree. I fully agree. That is the only way, in my opinion, to really take them down, is find a way that authoritarians cannot aggress upon you by binding them down with something else. You're never going to have perfect people. And that's why I think most things have failed in history, because they're like, let's make a perfect society. I'm like, that will never, ever, ever happen. But what you can do is find ways to limit psychopathy. Now, my fundamental thing is, my difference from Jefferson is, I say don't bind them down with Constitution, bind them down with incentives. Like Michael Malice says, if you have psychopaths working in an ANCAP society or a voluntary society, well, they probably, you know, they'll still be psychopaths, but they'll be like, okay, the CEO of Macy's or something. Obama and Hillary will be the CEO of like a department store. They won't have the reach to destroy Syria or things like that. And that's my fundamental difference. That being said, we shouldn't erase history just to make a few people with radical views happy. So, ladies and gentlemen,
and more to the point, they'll never be happy. They'll erase everything in this world, including themselves, before they could even claim to be happy. But go ahead.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in. If you want to find Vinny's work, you can go to the One Great Network with the all-seeing eye, which means that you have understood the knowledge of natural law, the fundamental difference between right and wrong. You can click on creators, go down all the way down to Vinny Eastwood. He has a pretty cool picture with his microphone here, and you can click on here, donate to him. You can also go to his websites, Bad News with Vinny Eastwood. Check out a lot of his interviews. He's done quite a few. You can also hit him up on the Facebook, the YouTube, and all the social medias here, Library Odyssey as well. And you can go to VinnyEastwood.com. VinnyEastwood.com or the Vinny Eastwood Show. And show, you can find all of his different things here on Odyssey, BitChute, Fashi's book, and Twitch. That one's always cracked me up. Also, ladies and gentlemen,
it's pronounced Fashbok.
Fashbok. I don't have a cold, but I'll work on it. I don't have Rona. I'll get me some Rona. I'll drink some beer. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed this show, if you want to fight for freedom and keep the ideals of Murray Rothbard and the Ron Paul Revolution going, go to the LP Mises Caucus. You can find information here, our resources, our actions. You can also put your name, last name, email address, phone number, state, and be part of the decentralized revolution. All right, everyone, I'm Kareem.
And also, here you can retrofit your car and have it run on LP Mises. But anyway, go.
You can. We have electric cars that run on freedom.
Well, that's why it's called free energy,
Yeah, they run on Nikola Tesla. I made a pun there. All right,
well, nickel and cobalt, but yes.
Maybe Elon Musk can sponsor this show. Or
maybe his half man child love child Elon Gates will do it instead. Apparently he takes a long time to do anything, hence the name.
Yeah. Except light up with Joe Rogan. Anyway, thank you very much for tuning in to The Essential Libertarian. I'm Kareem Mays, your host, with my awesome co-host, Vinny Eastwood. See you in the next episode.